ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, helas ng sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyang ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng pagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nagtitindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang may magtitindig. Luman ang araw ng walhati't pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya ng pagkay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Nonescost high we aim, with an eternal flame, through gladness and through tears, we live with you through the years, with love and devotion. We live by your inspiration. We give our praise and songs to hear Nonescost alma mater dear. Wherever we may go, we still remember you, serving us our light. We give our all and might, with love and devotion. We live by your inspiration. We give our praise and songs to hear Nonescost alma mater
Episode 5. This is Erdani Kabahaga, the Institutional Head for Culture, Arts, and Sports of Nonescost State College of Science and Technology. Together with the staff of the office, we are really enjoying to serve you all. The art of combining spoken or written words and their meanings into forms which have artistic and emotional appeal is called literature, as stated by Custodiosa Sanchez. In celebration of Intramurals 2020, Nonescost is conducting literary contest, English category, specifically for the following events: storytelling, essay writing, extemporaneous speech, and Nonescost prayer English contest. Presenting to you the contest headmaster for these events, Professor Marilyn Yanson Mangulabnan, to formally introduce to us our expert judges.
Good day, everyone. I have the honor to present to you today the judges for the English Literary Category Contest. The first judge is a consistent coach in quiz bees, spelling bees, and the SIP. He is also the consistent advisor for the SPG in Kansas City, and a trainer and a speaker in the MTOT K-12. Ladies and gentlemen, please all welcome our first judge, Mr. Kim A. Magallanes. Our next judge is a coach for Regional School Press Conference for Photojournalism. She is also a consistent trainer for extemporaneous speaking and for impromptu speaking, and a contest manager for essay writing contests in their district level. Ladies and gentlemen, our second judge is none other than Ms. Novi F. Agagon. Our next judge is a graduate of Bachelor of Arts in General Mass Communication at the West Visayas State University. She took her diploma in teaching distance education program at the same school. Also, she took another master's degree teaching English to speakers of other languages, or TESOL. And presently, she is taking her Master of Arts in teaching English at Carlos Hilado Memorial State College. Our third judge is none other than Miss Erlina M. Tulin. And for the winners for the college prayer, English, second runner-up goes to CCGE. And for the first runner-up goes to CAT. And for the champion goes to CCGE. Congratulations. For the winners for the essay writing contest, for the second runner-up goes to Kapas. And for the first runner-up goes to Sikti. For the champion goes to CBN. Congratulations. As a student, would you volunteer as a subject for clinical testing of any COVID-19 vaccine? Support your answer. Again, as a student, would you volunteer as a subject for clinical testing for any COVID-19 vaccine?
Acknowledging the presence of each judges, I am Fernando B. Inocencio III, and this is my point of view from the question. So as I view the question, if I would be that one who will volunteer to the testing for the vaccines, and my answer is yes. Before the existence of this pandemic and before the existence of this crisis, people are not tend to realize the importance of alcohol. People do not give importance or significance to the importance of face masks as well as the implemented protocols we have today. So if I would be that one to uh, to give myself for the country for the testing of this vaccine, I would rather give myself than not having anyone. So I have three salient points during this time or during these situations. Now, number one salient point is that a student has willingness. If you are a student, you know that we have willingness to learn. We have willingness to think fast because of this crisis that we have today. In order for us to know that, we have to know the value of the testing. For the testings of vaccines, for us to have an assurance that everyone can be back to the normal again. For we are now in a new normal where the importance of everything has been burst out. Now, so the second salient point is that the student has a role. If a student has a willingness, it has his own role. The role of a student for today is to provide prayer. One is to provide prayer. One is to know the capabilities of each and every one. The student has a capacity to know the idealism within the political standing we have today. So as a student, I have the role to impart myself, and as a student, I have a role to know the value of its importance of the vaccine for because of the experiences that I am facing today for the e-learning, and we want to I want to quote up that thing, the e-learning, for I experienced things that is incapable for the e-learning I have today for the poor connectivity for us. So as a student, I have the role to pursue my things. As a student, I have a role to value anything that is exist within the society. And as a student, I have a role to give my life as if thus the unspoken heroes within the society as well known for students, because it is exclusive for the students for us to know the idealism within the country and know the ideologies we set upon ourselves with, where the principles that exist within us are to help everybody, to help those people in need. So if no one will, I will. And as a student, I have the role to impart my life for the vaccine or the testing of the vaccine for myself and for the welfare of everybody. And the third salient point is that um, the student has a value. The student has value in each perspectives, in each place we are living in. So as a student, we valued our education. We valued our country. We valued our patriotism in this country. For this pandemic, this crisis is just challenges for us to know where we could stand our ground. So how fixed our foundations are, because as what Rizal told us to, at what as what Rizal told us, every Filipinos, we have to deal some things that could give us enough courage, that could give us enough strength to face every challenges. Because Rizal stated that ang kabataan ang pag-asa ng bayan. If no one will, if no one does, I will. And as a student, I have willingness, I have role to do the actions, and I am capable of knowing the value I am or I have in this country. Therefore, no one could make it if the vaccine will, if the testing of the vaccine gives way to uh, path we're taking about. So the people can as a student, I have the role to impart my knowledge and my skills. And that would be all, ma'am. Thank you for today.
Starts now.
Okay, thank you very much for this wonderful day, and thank you also for the judges. And good day to my fellow students and classmates, and good morning as well to the CAPAS department. So, based on the question or the topic that we have, if I would volunteer myself as a test subject for the COVID-19 vaccine, I would say yes. Actually, I have three reasons why to say yes to that. Number one, as a student and as a member of the young people's generation, since we're still young, our antibodies or our immune system is still at high level. So we can instantly, or our immune system can instantly adapt to this vaccine, anti-coronavirus. And then since we're still young, we still have a lot of time to digest or to get over or to apply that vaccine to ourselves. And then since the thing here is we are still at the middle age, so we are kind of physically active. So we do a lot of sports, we do a lot of exercise. So it helps our immune system or antibodies to build up or to develop, so that it can counter any viruses, and it can also develop new antibodies to adapt for the weather, the change of weather, for example, or any other flus or fever sickness. And then number two, this is based on statistics within regards of the Pfizer of America, and then the other pharmaceutical company who are developing the COVID-19 vaccine. Based on the statistics, we had an average of 90% success rate. So if we base that, 90% is quite a large number or a high number, actually. So there's nothing to fear about that. It has been tested multiple times, not just one, two, or three. It has a series of phases or steps. If we know the process of experimenting, or we are science oriented, we would know what's going to happen or what are the process. So the basic process, three steps, and then those three results should be the same. So I guess there's nothing to worry about being a test subject for the vaccine, anti-coronavirus. So definitely yes. So that's number two, the statistics. And number three, this is the most important part. Number three, it's all about volunteerism. Actually, volunteerism is one of the highest service that we can give. Why? Volunteerism here is that we help others without expecting in return. So volunteerism is not just for the community. It's not just for the people I wanted to help. It is a service to the Philippine country or our country. Um, some people nowadays, especially the young people, doesn't understand what service means, what volunteerism means. Volunteerism is not just a game that we play. It's not just for taking pictures, posting something online to make you look cool. No, that's not. That's not the right idea. The right idea here is that we young people should volunteer ourselves because the benefit here, we can grow, not just physically grow, but we can mentally grow. And this is part as well for our, it can help as well that our leadership skills will be enhanced. So right now, if ever the time comes that someone will ask me if I would like to volunteer for a test subject for the anti-coronavirus, I would say yes. So volunteerism is the highest service that we can offer. And then on top of that, since we are a student, college level, we had NSTP or ROTC. So if we would like to understand that, NSTP ROTC, it is an orientation for volunteerism. So we are already oriented with that. So there's nothing wrong with volunteerism. So again, I want to
Your
rephrase.
time is about to end.
COVID-19 pandemic has killed not only thousands but millions of people all over the world. I have witnessed people not close to me, cry and weep over the loss of a loved one because of this pandemic. I have witnessed firsthand how our frontliners did everything at their disposal to help prevent or help save lives of the pandemic victims. As a student and as a member of the community, if I was asked to sacrifice my life for COVID-19 vaccine testing, I will never hesitate to volunteer because first, we have we have lost millions of lives. We could not afford to lose one more. If sacrificing my life means adding additional lives to everyone who are more deserving to live here in the planet, then why not? Why would I be selfish in giving away my life? I will never hesitate to volunteer because I was taught to help people, to help those who are in need. And if that means sacrificing my life so that others could live, that is that is one of the most fulfilling duties I will ever do as a person and as a member of the community. Second, I was taught of altruism. Growing up as a child, everyone around me has taught that putting others first before yourself are always the greatest value one could ever bear, and that altruism is one of the most important values you could ever teach to the future generations. I am not selfish, and I I grew up being grounded, and I kept my feet grounded and put in mind that altruism is one of the greatest values one could ever bear. If that means putting my lives at the sake for the safety of others, I will never hesitate to say yes for volunteering. And lastly, I am 20 years old already, and at this age I have experienced a lot. I have suffered a lot, and I have been through a lot, and I can say that if this age I will ask to volunteer, I will never hesitate because if that is my purpose here, then why not? Why would I be selfish enough to not give my life to those who are more need who more needs more time than I? I am okay with sacrificing my life because I think that I have fulfilled my mission by volunteering and by being a student leader by amplifying voices of students and of people who are weak. If being a volunteer means saving millions of lives of people, then that, ladies and gentlemen, is, I think, the most fulfilling and most patriotic act one could ever bear and one could ever do for his or her government. I know that COVID-19 pandemic has made us wary, has made us depressed, but together, as we work hand in hand, we will combat this virus. We, all of us, should cooperate, work with our government, and we should never be selfish. We should always practice altruism and giving to others since we are in the midst of a pandemic. And my ladies and gentlemen, I am a natural born Filipino, and I will always put my common I will always put my fellow citizens before me. I have spoken. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Do you believe in change? Well, change is around us and it is inevitable. In some aspect of life, change is necessary when it comes to advancement, improvement, and adaptation and innovation. A specific aspect that change is a must in terms of advance and innovation in order for us to cope up of what is happening in our environment. Let us take a look, for example, of what is happening, not just in our country, the Philippines, but the whole world with this pandemic, the COVID-19, which affects a lot of our health. My question is this, as a student, I will subject myself as a volunteer for clinical testing, yes, because in some reason, first, I put all my trust in the hands of experts because according to FDA, it is supported by the trials and thorough investigation on how they developed the vaccine or the medicine that could possibly cure. And secondly, I will subject myself as a student to be a subject for clinical testing because clinical testing has the general clinical guidelines where they follow, in which is clinical based and has the facts and evidences that had been carried all throughout. And to sum up with, I will conclude that being part of the clinical testing, great advantage, or it is a great advantage and a big tribute to the field of science and technology, could possibly benefit not just the one single person who has been infected, but the whole world who is now experiencing this phenomenon. And by this, I will also encourage my fellow students, my fellow Filipinos to be responsible, to follow the protocols, safety protocols, and be educated in when it comes to this kind of current phenomenon. For the last reminder that being part of a single study or being in this kind of subject has the great benefits of all, and that's all what they all. Thank you.
Rivers do not drink their own water. Trees do not eat their own fruit. And the sun does not shine on itself. And the flower do not spread their fragrance on itself. We are born to help each other. So in relation to the topic that I've picked, as a student or as a youth, I would dedicate my whole self to volunteer to to clinical testing for COVID-19 cases. Why? Because I know that I am a role model to my fellow youth. I know that the youth is the kids of tomorrow. So I would dedicate my whole self to volunteer and to give my extra effort to that clinical testing. And I believe that because if we cooperate with each other, we have a peaceful and a very good country that we live in. So as a student, I have the right to volunteer, and my right is to help each other, especially in these trying times. We are experiencing this kind of pandemic. We were devastated. So as a role model, I would take the courage to volunteer, and extend my um, I will extend my effort to that clinical testing for COVID-19 vaccine, because I believe that the kids are the hope of tomorrow. And we as youth, or I as student, I believe that I can create a greater change for my society. Thank you.
To the administrators, faculty, and staff, to the board of educators, distinguished guests, family, friends, and classmates, good afternoon. Greetings to all of you. It is my honor and privilege to speak in front of this virtual stage and to tell you about my opinion. The question that was given to me is that if I will allow myself to be a subject of this COVID-19 virus testing, COVID-19 virus vaccine testing. COVID-19 virus has two important characters. Can cause a several disease, death of people, and can easily spread from one person to another. As a student, I will not allow myself to be a subject for this vaccine. For I have three reasons. First, I am not sure if it is 100% sure that the procedure is will be success. Second, I'm not sure if my body can adjust from the side effects of this vaccine. And the third, I have to consult a specialist for the do's and don'ts of this vaccine. And as a student, I am suggesting everybody to practice the protocols mandated by the government, such as wearing masks, face shields, observe social distancing, washing hands, using alcohol, and eating nutritious food. And I believe that we cannot hope to build a better future without improving the individuals. To that end, each of us must work for his own improvement and at the same time share a general responsibility for all humanity. Our particular duty being to aid to those whom we can see. Our particular duty is being to aid to those whom we can, and also and I believe that prevention is better than cure. Thank you.
And for the winners for the extemporaneous speech contest, for the second runner-up goes to the CCGE.
This pandemic, this crisis is just challenges for us to know where we could stand our ground. So how ang kabataan ang pag-asa ng bayan.
For the first runner-up goes to Konas.
We have lost millions of lives. We could not afford to lose one more. If sacrificing my life means adding additional lives to everyone who are more deserving to live here in the planet, then why not?
And for the champion goes to Kapas. Congratulations.
Okay, I want to rephrase. One, yes, I would like, because I'm still young. I have a lot of antibodies. Number two, that is statistics and 90% success rate. And number three, volunteerism is the best service. So that would be all. Thank you very much. Okay, I want to rephrase. One, yes, I would like because I'm still young. I have a lot of antibodies. Number two, that is statistics and 90% success rate. And number three, volunteerism is the best service. So that would be all. Thank you very much.
Hello there! You're here. Does that mean you also want to hear a story from me? Of course! I will tell you a story. But this story is different from the stories I've told you before. This is not about happy fairy tale. This is about injustice. How rich people can still be greedy despite of their enormous wealth. Are you a farmer? Or do you know someone who plants rice for a living? This story is all about them. Rice by Manuel Arguilla. Pablo unhitched the carabao from an empty sled and led the beast into a young tamarind tree where the beast ate fresh green zacchati. Pablo felt so weak. He was so hungry he could have eaten and chewed the grass of the carabao. Pablo went into his house and called, "Sebia! Sebia!" But there was no answering voice that came from the house. So Pablo walked into the house of the neighbor, who is Oshang. "Oshang, do you know where my wife and my children are?" Oshang answered him. "Sebia and the children went into the creek to get snails. I told them to be careful because they might be caught by the watchman. God save our souls. What kind of life is this when we can't even get snails from the creek? And pay a multa of 5 kavans for a handful of snails?" So Pablo just sat down on the ladder and waited for his wife and his children. That morning, he and the other tenants have gone to the Signora's house to borrow grain. But the announcement said, 5 kavans of rice borrowed today will be paid back with 10 kavans of rice on the next harvest. They all protested because it was so unfair. 5 kavans of rice to be paid back with 10 kavans? But the encargado added, 5 kavans of rice will be paid back with 10. Either that or you're not going to get rice. Pablo and his companions felt sad and disappointed about the news. So the angry Signora said to them, "Do you see those trucks? If you're not going to get rice today, those trucks will carry all the sacks of rice into the city. And I hope you all starve, you ungrateful beasts," she said. And that is the reason why they ended up with empty sleds and went home. "Pablo!" the voice of Oshang cried out. So Pablo went into their house and said to Oshang. He was about to tell Oshang that there was no rice, that his husband did not get rice from the Senora and him also. But he could not do it himself. He was about to leave when he saw Andres, the husband of Osha, coming down the path from the house of Eddie. So he walked slowly to meet him. And then Andres asked him, "Are you going with us tonight?" So Pablo answered and said, "What are you going to do? Are you out of your mind? You're going to stop the truck going to the city, loaded with sacks of rice? That is robbery. What are you going to do? There might be a killing. What will you do? What will your family do? Your wife, your children? That is stealing. Why?" But Andres just answered and said to Pablo, "It is food, Pablo. Food for my family, food for your family, and food for everyone. And it's not stealing. The rice is ours," answered Pablo. Answered Andres to Pablo. But their conversation ended when Pablo saw his wife and his children, so he hurried to meet them. They were accompanied by a man, and that person is the watchman.
"I caught them fishing on the fields. You're going to pay for 5 cabins,"
said the watchman. But then Sebia cried out, "But we're just gathering snails from the creek. What's bad with that?" Sebia cried and cried like a child. But then the watchman repeated, 5 cabins of rice," and then he strode away. Pablo just looked at his wife and his children, 2 boys and the little girl.
"Eat that! I'm so hungry!"
cried Isabel, the little girl, to his father. "But they have no rice." Pablo told them that they have no rice. In that moment, Pablo felt disappointed and weak. So what he did, he wanted to kill the carabao. He beat the carabao until the wood broke out. Sebia, his wife, stopped him and never let him beat the carabao. So Pablo decided to go with Andres to stop the truck loaded with sacks of rice.
Rice by Manuel E. Arguello. Slowly, Pablo unhitched the carabao from the empty sled. He laid a horny palm on the back of the tired animal. The thick, coarse, hairy skin was warm and dry like sun-heated earth. Pablo watched the animal a moment, half listening to its snuffling as it buried its mouth in the sweat-smelling zaki. He felt so hungry he could have gone down on his knees beside the carabao and chewed the grass. "Eat," he said in a thin, wheezy voice. "You can have all the grass you want." He slapped the animal's smooth, fat rump and turned to the house, his hand falling limply to his side. "Sibia," he called, raising his voice until it broke shrilly. "Sibia." No answering voice came from the hut. He could hear the sound of pounding in the neighboring hut, and going to the broken-down fence that separated the 2 houses, he called out weakly, "Oshang, do you know where my wife and children have gone?" What is it, Mang Pablo?" The loud voice of a woman broke out the hut. "You are home already? Where are your companions? Did you see my husband? Did you not come together? Where is he? Where is the shameless son of a whore? Why doesn't he come home? He knows I have been waiting the whole day for the rice he is bringing home. I am so hungry. I cannot even drag my bones away from the stove. What is he doing at the house of Elise? The shameless, good-for-nothing son of a whore. There is no rice, Ocean. He called back wheezily over his shoulder. Mang Pablo, how many cavans of rice did you borrow? Sibia told me you are to cook the rice as soon as you came home. She went with the children to the creek for snails. I told them to be careful and throw away whatever they gather if they see a watchman coming. God save our souls. What kind of life is this when we cannot even get snails from the fields? Pay a multa of 5 cavans for a handful of snails. There is no rice, Osham, he whispered. He felt too tired and weak to raise his voice. Harvest time was 2 months off, and in the house of Pablo, there was no rice to eat. 5 sacks of rice borrowed today became 10 at the harvest time. We always borrowed Tershohan. 4 cavans become 6. The man had repeated over and over, although they used to find this arrangement difficult and burdensome. Tershohan, they had begged. Not takipan, that is too much. What will be left to us? The storms have destroyed half of my rice plants. I have 6 children to feed. 5 becomes 10. The encargado said, either that or you get no rice. They had gathered around Liz. In the end, every man had silently emptied his loaded sled and prepared to leave. The senora had come out. Did you see those trucks? If you do not take the rice tonight, the trucks will carry every sack in the sight to the city. Then I hope you all starve your ungrateful beast. It was Elise who drove away first. The others followed. The sacks of rice lay there in the yard in the sun, piled across each other. Mang Pablo, wait, Oshang, Pablo said. And finding the smoke had gone dry, he stepped into the kitchen and from the red clay jar dipped himself a glass of water. Here I am, Oshang, he said, but he had to strike the wall of the hut before he could attract the attention of Oshang, who had gone back to her pounding and could not hear Pablo's weak, wheezy voice. War son, she exclaimed as one of the pieces of gold she was transferring from a coconut shell to the straw in Pablo's hand rolled away. He went slowly to meet Andres. Oshang was still pounding in her little stone mortar. The sharp thudding of a stone pestle against the mortar seemed to Pablo unnaturally loud. Are you coming with us? He asked Pablo, his voice grunting in his throat as he strove to speak quietly. Don't be a fool, Andres, he said, coughing to clear his throat and trying to appear calm. He glared at the older man, but Pablo was looking down at the smoking straw in his hand. What can you do, Andres? He said. You say you will stop the trucks bearing the rice to the city. That will be robbery. 5 cavans paid back double is robbery too. Only robbers do not go to jail. Perhaps there will be a killing. We will take the chance. You will all be sent to believe it. What will become of the wife and the children behind? Who will feed them? They are starving right now under our very eyes. But you are here with them. That is worse. What do you hope to gain by stealing a truckload of rice? Food, Andres said tersely. Is that all? Food for our wives and children. Food for everybody. That is enough. What will happen if the stolen rice is gone? Will you go on robbing? It is not stealing. The rice is ours. Before the moon rises tonight, the first truck will pass around the bend by the bridge. Pablo did not look back. He had seen his wife and 3 children approaching the hut. They were fishing in the fields. The watchman said stolidly, "You will pay a fine of 5 cavans." "We are only gathering snails," Sibir protested, sobbing. 5 cavans, the watchman said. "I came to tell you so that you will know." Speaking to Pablo, he turned and strode away. Itay, I'm hungry, Sabel, the girl said. The two boys looked up at him mutely. I was just going to get the fire from Ocean. Pablo heard himself say, You have not cooked the rice? Sibia asked, moved wearily to the ladder. There is no rice. Sibia listened in silence. Then what were you going to cook with the fire? She asked finally. I don't know. He was forced to say. Give me my bolo, Sibia. Give me my bolo. We shall have food tonight. But Sibia held him and would not let him go until he quieted down and sat with back against the wall of the hut. Sabel had stopped crying. The two boys sat by the cold stove. God save me, Pablo said brokenly. Outside, the darkness had thickened. Pablo picked his way through the tall grass in the yard. He stopped to look back in the house. In the twilight, the hut did not seem to lean so much. He tightened the belt of the heavy bolo around his waist, pulling the old burry hat firmly over his head. He joined Andres, who stood waiting by the broken-down fence. In silence, they walked together to the house of Elise.
Dear panel of judges, faculty and staff, classmates, schoolmates, friends, good day to each and every one of us. Today, I am going to tell you a story entitled Rise, written by Miguel Arguella. It is a story that talks about a father who is willing to give everything just to support the needs of his family, a father who is willing to take risks just to cater the needs of his beloved family. As I tell you the story, sit back, relax, and listen as I started the story Rise. One afternoon, on a hunt with tamarind tree beside it, Pablo, an old farmer, came from the farm and unhitched his carabao upon its empty sleeve and began to feed it with sapote. Then he called his wife, Subio, Subio, but no one answered from their hut. He goes to the neighborhood and asks if they seen Sibia and his 3 children. Usyang, do you know where my wife and children are gone? What is it, Mang Pablo? You are home already. Where are your companions? Did you see my husband? Did you come together? Where is he? Where is that slaveless son of a war? Later sometime, after asking so many questions regarding to his husband and dress, she told Mang Pablo that his wife and 3 children went to the creek for some snails. Sylvia told me that you were going to cook the rice as soon as you came home. She went with the children to the creek for snails. I told them to be careful and throw away whatever they gathered if they see a watchman coming. God save all souls. What kind of life we cannot even get snails from the field? Pay a multa of 5 cabans for a handful of snail? Ushang said. Mang Pablo reminisced the scenario later that morning with several tenants driven from the slate of the house of the Senora to borrow some bricks. But as day go comes changes. The usual tertio hand system on borrowing becomes takipan, meaning the amount they borrow becomes double as they harvest at time. His tenants refuse for this. It is too much and they cannot even know if they can pay it exactly at the time given. In the end, everyone lived with an empty sleeve and came home without any rice to eat. Then, Ushang's voice broke the silence, asking if he had already cooked the rice and offered him a piece of gold. Then, he is about to go home. Andres, the husband of Usyang, came and gave a sign to him, telling that he must wait for him. Andres A dark, broad, and squat man wearing a printed camisa de chino appeared with him, asking Mang Pablo if he is coming with them. Mang Pablo, being a nice guy, advised him not to continue what they are planning because they will commit stealing. But Andres, together with the other men, they are desperate to do it. As he returned, he had seen his wife and 3 children, and it was accompanied with a man. The man told him that they are fishing in the field, but Sibia disagreed and told him that they are just gathering some snails. Then, the watchman told Mang Pablo that they must have paid 5 kabats. Sibia asking for the rice, but Mang Pablo told them that there is no rice available. Where will we get rice to pay for our multa? Sibia asked Mang Pablo. After a while, their children starting to whimper their feet. Itay, I'm hungry. Their little Sabel, the youngest child of Mang Pablo, told. While looking at his hungry children, seeing weakness and pain, then he asked for his bolo. Sibia, give me my bolo. Give me my bolo, and tonight we will have food. Then, by that night, walking in a dark with full tall grasses in their yard, Mang Pablo decided to join Andres to do stealing, and together they walked to the house of Eli. Is the end of the story. I hope you gathered some lessons wherein a father who is willing to take risks and give everything just to support his beloved family. Goodbye everyone, and keep safe.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Clayder Laviason, and I am proud to represent the College of Nursing and Allied Health Sciences. And with that, do you all want to hear an interesting story? A story about the lives of the family's farmers, whose lives and hardships have been neglected ever since they started working in the land of Hacienda Consuelo? If so, sit back, relax, and enjoy. It shall be my job to tell you about the whole story. One day, in the land of Hacienda Consuelo, there's a farmer named Mang Pablo. Mang Pablo has a huge carabao, which he slowly unhitched from the sled and tied around his tamarind tree, just beside their almost dilapidated nipa house. And by the term dilapidated, the house had surpassed 4 great storms over the past year. Imagine the strongness of the house which had surpassed those great storms. Then, upon gazing at the land of Hacienda Consuelo, Mang Pablo has thought of the better future that he could have secured for his family. But then, his job and time didn't permit it to happen. And speaking of his family, he went looking for them, so he called them. Sabia? Sabia? Sabia, are you there? Sabia? But then, nobody answered. So he decided to walk around the neighborhood to look for them. He walked and walked and walked until he came across with one of their neighbors, Aling Usyang. So he asked her immediately, Aling Usyang, have you seen my wife and my children? I've been looking for them. Mang Pablo, I haven't seen them, but have you also seen my husband? You know, Andres, I have been looking for him all day and I don't know where to find him. Mang Pablo was quite unsure of what to answer Aling Usyang, so he just told her that, Alusiang, I think that he's with Elise and the rest of the group. I think they're talking about something, but he will just be back home soon. He better come back, Mang Pablo, because I'm so worried about him. That good for nothing. He's always giving me the stress. He's always leaving me in times that I need him. But do you have any rice with you, Mang Pablo? Because I'm starving and I just want to eat. Aling Sebia said that once you are home, you will be bringing some rice after harvesting a lot of it. But then, after what Aling Osiang has said, Mang Pablo became weary and sad. And he answered that there's no rice with him, that he hasn't brought anything with him since he came back. So, it seems like Aling Osiang didn't hear of what he said. Instead, she just went to her home, and so Mang Pablo followed her. Then, Mang Pablo sat on a ladder. Then, he saw Andres approaching his way. So, he greeted Andres. Andres, glad that you're here. Your wife has been looking for you. And have you seen my children? But then, it seemed like Andres was clueless of what he was saying. So, I have no idea where they went. I have no idea. But then, Pablo, I have a plan. Why don't we just go to Señora's house and beg for extra rice for us to have something to feed for our family? Then, Pablo thought that it seemed like a good idea, so they went to Señora's house. Knock, knock, knock. Then, one of Señora's guard welcomed them. What is it that you want? One of the guards said. We are here to probably ask some favor from the Señora since that we have been borrowing the canaves from her. The guard seemed uninterested of their favor, so he just called the Señora out of her house. What is it that you want from me, you ungrateful people? You've been harvesting rice ever since it's harvest time. And have you seen those trucks? Those trucks will bring the sacks of rice once they are done, and then they will be brought to the cities, and then you will starve together with your family. Understand me? You all have been asking something big from me, when in fact I have been giving you a lot of it. Andres and Mang Pablo and the rest of the people were shocked to hear from the Señora's statement. And with that, they decided to leave. So they left, and after it, Andres has come up with an idea that they would rob one of the trucks that is carrying the rice. But then, Mang Pablo seemed to be unsure about it because it is talking about robbery, and robbery is against his moral values. So he asked Andres, Andres, will that include killing? Because I'm not gonna participate, I'm not gonna do it. That is against my will, and then my wife won't be happy about it. Andres was so certain of what he's about to do, replied, My people, all of us have been starving since the beginning, and you expect me to do nothing about this situation? Them robbing our needs, our rights, and our properties, and you expect me to do nothing about it again? No, we must do something about this, Pablo. Then that struck Mang Pablo's conscience and his will. So, he was silent about the matter. Then, he went home. He went home until he heard his children crying because they're hungry. And then their daughter, Sabel, was crying so loud because her stomach was hurting and that she was so hungry. Papa! Itay, I'm so hungry. Do we have rice at home? Do we have rice? Do we have rice at home? Mang Pablo was left speechless once again because he couldn't even fathom of what's happening around him, that he must do something to save his family and their future. And with that rage of anger, certainty, and everything that is packed within him, he went to Andres and decided that they shall do the operation tonight and that they will be robbing one of the trucks which carries the rice that's supposed to be in the first place for them and his people alone.
And for the winners for the storytelling contest, second runner-up goes to CCGE.
A father who is willing to take risks just to cater the needs of his beloved family. As I tell you the story, sit back, relax, and listen as I started the story right.
And for the first runner-up goes to Conan.
Just beside their almost dilapidated Nipa house, and by the term dilapidated, the house had surpassed 4 great storms over the past year.
And for the champion goes to Kuwait. Congratulations.
5 cabins of rice borrowed today will be paid back with 10 cabins of rice on the next harvest. Either that or you're not going to get rice.
Pablo and his companions felt sad and disappointed about the news.
Yes, we have just witnessed all the outputs and performances of the Nonescost students. Congratulations to all the winners and the rest of the contestants and coaches. Special thanks to Professor Marilyn Yanson Mangulapnan, the contest headmaster for this event. Thank you also to all participating teams, especially the college team, department heads, department culture and arts coordinators, and faculty coaches of Nonescost for facilitating the talents of the contestants. Ladies and gentlemen, that ends our Intramurals on Air Episode 5, the Literary Contest English category. We are on the 3rd day of Intramurals 2020, so please keep updated always from time to time, because Intramurals on Air Episode 6 will be aired tonight. Again, this is Hernani Kabahaga, the institutional head for Nonescost Culture, Arts, and Sports. Together with the staff of the office, we are really enjoying to serve you all, even beyond office